everyone, welcome back. And this match is going to be my Smacky Cup round 3. Frostleaf. So this is it's a different map. If you can see, we have 3 bases in the corners. And basically that means it's a lot of the game's going to be getting our units out and positioned well. Especially because you have all these rivers that are just going to hinder you developing your units. There is a black boat over here, and black boat is 100% necessary. And I would even go as far to say is that for an equal map where you're taking equal trades, this is not sufficient. You're going to want a lander. I choose a lander in this map. I think it's just 9 times out of 10, it's the way to go. So basically the first thing I want to look at on this map, well, obviously there's a decent chunk amount of forests, and so that's, with that many forests in a fog map, you can assume this is going to be rather a stally map. It takes a while to get out your units, so you're not going to want to just throw them away as easily. You're going to want to be more defensive. And as well as once we get into the reinforcement lines, the defensive position you want to take up, the best one there, you'll see this is rather a stalling map. Other things to point out is that this is not only is it 3 base, it's 2 airport, which, especially because the airports are more forward, that's going to make this, as well as this weird river conglomerate, we're just going to call it, is going to make that copters are really good at getting out there and efficient. So with that, you're going to want to guarantee you get a lot of anti-air out there, not just battle copters. So we're going to switch over to this map for the breakdown of reinforcement lines. So the way I'm going to do reinforcement lines is I'm going to put little indicating dots pretty much where from the furthest you can get from a base. So in this case, this line over here is going to be reinforcements from this base mostly. Over here is going to be this base. I'm going to assume this doesn't exist. And we're just going to focus on tanks for simplicity's sake. Alright, so these are the reinforcement lines, and what that means is basically you can get this far by turn 3 with the tank. And this is going to give you a good idea of how to position your units' defense. So one thing to note, if you let's say you were to take a battle in here or on this line, what that means is he probably has a unit here, but his reinforcements can go there and attack as well. He's almost guaranteed to have a reinforcement there if he builds some reinforcement turn. So you really don't want to fight in here because the reinforcements are going to get there faster, and they're going to he's going to have more units against your lesser count of units to kind of take care of your units, lower them, and it's just a lose-lose scenario. So another thing to look at is the enemy side of this. This is going to kind of paint a better picture of how the map's going to be portrayed. So if you notice, there's about 6 moves from the enemy side to your side. So of course you're not going to want to fight here, and you're not going to want to fight here. So most of your fights are going to happen in between this, kind of like a sandwich. So next we're going to, so there's the question of, I'm going to assume we still don't have the land, but I'm going to put up air reinforcements specifically from this base on this side. You can bring one out this side, but I think this side is a better visualization for the importance of air in this. All right. One thing I didn't clarify is the number on these units is the turns it takes to get a unit out there, if that wasn't obvious. So here you can see with the green air support, it really pushes this far. So realistically, you're going to be, let's say, probably fighting within this little line right here. And the enemy is going to be fighting there. So you can see on this side, the top enemy has an advantage. On this side, the bottom enemy has an advantage. And over time, you would expect to see that. And so this is not super ideal. So what you're going to want to do is you want to get your units out here. And if you can purchase a lander, the effectiveness of a lander changes. A lander is more valuable the further you can take your units with it. So if we just if I were to throw up green's lander reinforcement line, it becomes this. As you can see, it's a lesser count and it's much further. In fact, it's right on this line of it's right behind this line, but meaning this line is going to be important. So this basically, you want it because you can get that much far forward. You're actually beyond their air reinforcement line. So if you can get anti-air up to here, that's great, because then his battlecopters can't just rush in and hit you, especially early on. And then the enemy can do the same thing to you. So what this tells me is that, one, that this... Let's go to a different map. There we go. So what that tells me is that this... This segment of properties are going to be very important. As you see, both lines, well, the air support, but the ground support, and ground support gets a little bit more effective use out of this, of these lines. And it's super great because once you have the lander, this is kind of like the medium line. And you have cities and forests to hide in. So that's a really great defensive position. So as you saw earlier, yes, let's say if I'm green, I could get this super early, but he could also get this using a lander. So it depends. The earlier you want to get a lander out a little bit sooner than later, just so you're not having to fight your opponent on those properties. Really, once gotten, it's hard to dislodge those. And I'm going to make note of these comm towers. As you saw, these were pretty much on the reinforcement line. These I would consider just completely uncontestable. You're guaranteed to get one. If you got both, at that point you probably won. You've pushed so far, you have so many units that you've won at that point. Alright, so if that's not overly confusing for you, although I've kind of moved fast just for the sake of, you don't want to be sitting here for an hour just to hear a few moments of actual good ideas. We're going to go into the CO selection. So I'm going to start with just Von. So this is a tier 2, but they allow Von Bolt and they allow Javier. I've seen some people choose Javier. I'm just going to say right now, I'm not even going to analyze him just because I think this is definitely not a Javier map. Javier maps typically follow one or two principles. One, for him to be viable, he needs more than one comm tower. He really does. Otherwise, he's just kind of a discount bolt, and his powers aren't really that great if you don't have at least two. Two, if you do intend on playing him in a 2 comm tower map, you need the comm towers to be contestable, because if he gets 2 comm towers while you have none, that's normally a win condition. Here, though, it's not really contestable, because if he pushes, let's say Von Bolt is yellow, if he were to try to and get this, fight for this, it's a losing battle to go for that comm tower, and once you get there, there's not a good way of defending it. you have all these forests and whatnot to help defend it. You could put an artillery on it, although against Von Bolt you probably wouldn't want to. But you'd be expending quite a bit of resources to try to take something that's in the enemy's lane. So I would consider Von Bolt just no way, Jose. All right. So there's 3 main picks that I would even consider. I'm not going to go through every one of the tier, but just 3 ones that I think are somewhat viable. We have Von Bolt, we have Olaf, and we have Eagle. So starting with Von Bolt, so if you're familiar with the triage of tier 2, there's Max, Olaf, Eagle. Olaf kind of replaces Max here. He's not super great because his power will not scale as the other 2 in the map. Because if you can figure out that I kind of said it was a stally map, that means the super such as global damage, that's going to be very effective time after time after time, as well as it's already difficult to get your units out. So if the snow can even further slow down your units, great. And Eagle, if you're not familiar, he's the stalliest of all. Basically, you want to get as many units as you can. He has 2 airports on this map and 3 bases, so he has a lot of chances to get units out. Once he gets those units out and once he's defending them, go back to this. Basically, those 2 stallers would just want to stall on these lines and these lines. And because they're very defensible, it's just a great strategy on this particular map. Von Bolt. So if Von Bolt's not stally, why is he here? Well, he's better at dealing with stall than, let's say, Max, because although Max has more attack and he's more aggressive, Von Bolt needs to be able to push in and disrupt these other 2 from setting up their defenses. So that extra attack does help him get in with that knockout punch, and then his defense allows him to keep hold of, let's say, those cities and forests while he's trying to just be a menace. His power, I wouldn't say, is too great on this map, just because it's a large map. You're gonna be spread out, so you're basically going for the day-to-day. And if you play him, you're going for that knockout, that really quick. Just like end this game within less than, let's say, 16 days. The other 2 want to stall out the days as many as. That's my thoughts on these. I do think, in hindsight, I would have chosen Eagle now, because during the time, at least, I was doing practice matches with various COs, and I'd already started my Smacky Cup game at that point just because I couldn't delay it any longer. And just Eagle, as soon as he gets his power, he has those. It's easy to get your units on this map. It's easy to stall on this map. He is just too powerful. That lightning strike at that point. Anyways, if I could do it again, not knowing who my enemy is going to choose, I would choose Eagle. I might still choose Eagle no matter what he chose. So, the elephant in the room, because you've already seen it, my opponent decided to choose Grit. Now, Grit was also allowed in this match, and I think it's because Grit's not necessarily great on this map. At the time, though, this threw me for a loop because I think my opponent's seeing something I'm not seeing. Now, if you were to go into the map analysis, you can see that Grit is almost never chosen for the map. Reasons because is, one, you have artillery. It's going to take longer for your artillery to get into position. 2, it's not necessarily great to produce walls out here. This map. Pretty much you'd have to get your units out and position them here and here. It's not a great place to. You're defending these tiles, but there's not a great place to put your units to defend these tiles necessarily. Now, Grit, out of anyone, has more of a shot because he has, look, 1, 2, 3, 4. He's able to hit these from certain positions. but it's not great. Also, Grit really doesn't like battlecopters, and this is a battlecopter heavy map. So he doesn't like battlecopters because they can easily maneuver around his units and get to his artillery a little bit easier. And that, as well as if he tries to do something like span battlecopters. Yes, he can use battlecopters. They're just wildly inefficient just because there's 20% less than 20% less than you'd actually want. Also, on this map, I would say the main units you're going to want are tanks, anti-air, battlecopters, the triage of these units. Indirects can be okay. Anti-air can be utilized, but not in small quantities. If you think about it, if he's not producing tanks, he has 6 movement. 5 movement instead of the 6 movement tanks. So it takes 3 turns to get, let's say, here. His artillery would probably be around here, and he'd have a thinner line. Same with the push. He'd have a thinner line. I think in the long run, it doesn't. It wouldn't be great. Although, for me, I'm not used to fighting Grit mains. Not that my opponent this match was a Grit main. I don't know, there's just an uncomfortability with me fighting into Grit, so I want to stall, but I don't want him to stall, because my concern is that he's going to just build infantry lines the entire time. Okay, if we are done with me rambling on, we're going to start the match. One thing I always forget is I'm going to show it to you only from my perspective. I will leave up this, the money counter, because I think it's good. Most of my concern is the position of the units. So, standard opener on this map. Prepare for this one to go up here, because you want to start capturing these as soon as possible. You want to capture, especially if you're not going to use a lander, you want to capture these and then slowly let him have it if that's your plan. But keep in mind, if he goes for lander, that can quickly be thrown off, unless you somehow just overwhelm your opponent. Yeah, I'm just kind of skipping. Generally, you want to time it out well so that you can get 2 units in here at once, so you can average 1 unit over here every turn. If you're not super paying attention to your build order and how you're doing your build, that can happen. I would say that happened to me this map, even though I thought I knew better. Some people, especially some people I like watching, use a battlecopter, and that's very fine. I just think on the bottom, it's more important that you get vehicles out there, and that will delay a vehicle out there. And in some case, it's a crapshoot on this map, in my opinion. So I opened with a tank. Now that I've played this game, several times, I would say tank is not necessary. It's not the perfect opening for this. And in my mind, for some reason, knowing how many opponents will throw a battlecopter at you early, a anti-air actually might be really good, because one, there's going to be units over here, a lot of infantry over here, and the main 2 units you're going to encounter first almost always are battlecopters from here and infantry. So anti-air, in my mind, now that I know that I have the income, it's something to play around with for future future matches on this map. One thing that I will note that I don't think I've talked about is once everyone has their units, right? Once the income is split, the likelihood of you getting certain cities. So I would mark down the likelihood. Let's say these cities over here are owned by yellow. What's the likelihood that you're going to capture these? I would say, for the most part, the easiest capture is this one. Then this one, because this one is somewhat flipped depending on who gets it. If it gets flipped, this is the second most easiest to flip. And then this one. By the time you do this one, usually there's usually once you get these three, there's a huge flip in the map. And if you've maintained your hold on these, you've pretty much won at that point. You have three units that should have been theirs. You're up 6,000 over them. You've pretty much won as long as you don't really mess up. All right, going back to the game. There's not much going on. So I've been taken to this new concept on certain matches where you open with tank and then you follow up with recon, especially if you're not super concerned on stopping captures out here. Because if their infantry take a while to get out here and you're here early with a recon, that doesn't necessarily help. You don't want to be so far into them just to hit infantry that you're in range of one of their tanks. That's the thought process with the tank recon guard opener. And then I follow up with an anti-air. I want an anti-air out here early because I think this is the most likely place. This is the earliest place you're probably going to get an airport. I'm sorry, a battlecopter. Mostly because in terms of reinforcement, this airport down here going up is a lot shorter than this one. So you pretty much focus these over here and this one over here. And as you can see, this is the first one anyone's going to get. So he's probably already captured his as well. If he gets enough income, he could buy one and just send it down. As well as, let's say, if he sends mechs, which sometimes I've had opponents send mechs. Anti-air is going to be, it's not the ideal solution to it because I'm tend to fall into the camp, save it for the air support, unless you know there's no tank around and you can get a free hit. Then in that case they're good. Pretty much I'm facing Grit. Grit's probably not going to have a lot of tanks to counter my tanks and my anti-air, which in and of itself is going to be an issue. On this map, I'm not really skipping any cities. I want to make sure I get my income so that when I do finally buy the lander, that I can afford it, and not only that, but afford to put a unit on it for the next turn to transfer. So I sent my first battlecopter, and the reason I send a battlecopter now is that it's either I build and continue building on this side. I could halt this and build a unit on this side. Let's say this anti-air can build on this side. But then it's still going to take 3 turns to get out here, where if you saw the reinforcement line for a copter here, it's you actually pretty far out there. So this is also the same reason why I build an anti-air, is because I know this is a great way to get units out here early before you have such lander or such things, and that's why I go the route I do. Another thing is I have seen people do mechs over here. It usually slows down your opening a hair, and you have to be more reactive. It's harder to gain these on the side if you're using mechs. If they push into your area, it's a great defensive tool, but it depends on you and your opponent. You can figure them out or not. Just keep working on that in-game economy. Pushing out my units. There's not usually in the openings, there's nothing interesting because you haven't interacted with your opponent yet. So this is the first guy I see. Trying to remember what I do. Do I go for the hit? I think I should. I did not. Okay, that's fine. Pretty much based off the counter, it's hard. It's almost impossible to get a. Actually, Yeah, because he went this one, it's not the money is not, it's highly unlikely that he has a unit that can hit this. So if you were to just go here and punish that just to get a hit, I think it'll be fine. But at the same time, he could not see my tank unless he has a recon out here. So I'm not horribly worried about that. Usually I have a choice between these two, getting one before the other. I always get this one early. One, depending on what I'm feeling, there could be a backup guy here ready to pick this off. If not, this is going to be more important because I do spam battlecopters on this map, usually. Because both people who I would say are the best for this map have good battlecopters. Again, I'm kind of... The reason I take this chance by pushing so far in is that I have this to cover, and to some extent I want him to send a battlecopter because essentially it'd be a free hit with this early in the game. And so free battlecopter hit with anti-air is always a great trade because you're not trading losing this unit. You might get one hit point out for a 9,000 unit. That is a great trade. Moving more of my up. Because you see I have units here, I need units here too. I'm anticipating his push. I want to hold this off while I fight and take this. So he just came to my dojo. This was kind of a bad move on his end. I don't know what he was doing here. If he thinks he can even attain this, he's just wrong. And so I make him pay. Now he knows I have anti-air, so that's going to somewhat deter him from making battlecopters on this front. He can make them this one. I do have battlecopters too. If it comes to battlecopter on battlecopter, he has weaker battlecopters, I'm going to win. This right here surprised me. He has his recon out here, and just to think about what it can see, it's not getting good vision on any of the fronts I would consider that matters. Now, he can 1, 2, 3, 4. He can see what I develop. Of course, he can see that I have battlecopters I'm developing. Sure. I don't know how useful that is. It'd be really useful if he had artillery in the area. He did a push here so he can get vision and then hit me, but actually just go here just to blow it up. Of course, you see now that this is out of range of that. But in the meantime, I'm not caring. I'll be honest, when my opponent starts doing weird stuff, I kind of just stop. If he does weird stuff, keep doing weird stuff, I just kind of tune out a little bit. It's not a good thing that I do this, but it's just one of those, I just don't find it as enjoyable compared to like this move right here. So what is his plan going this far in? And what we'll end up seeing is that he actually has units out here. I think he's trying to gain the center. Gaining anything in the center is not worth it because one, there's not forest to hide, and there's not a good reason to control the center. Because sure, you can control the center, and yeah, you can front switch, but I have units here, I have units here. If I really want to, I can squeeze from both sides. Any person can do that. So it's not really great in here, and there's nothing great defensively here, and more importantly, there's nothing here of value. There's no cities, there's no comm tower. Sure, you can get it, but why would you want to hold? It's hard to hold, and why would you want to hold? So this is going to be interesting. Finally start doing the comm tower. I expect he might have already captured his. I'm just going to attack his infantry with my infantry. Normally you want to hold on to your infantry, but this serves two purposes. Not that they're good purposes in my situation. That one, I want to make sure he doesn't have any units to capture this. At the same time, though, I kind of want to get a peek in here, and that that reasoning is kind of heavily flawed, I should say. Oh, I didn't notice. Last turn I built my lander, which is fine. And the 2 units, as you can see up here, that I do need tanks eventually. I do need, most importantly, vision. Vision's going to be important against a grit player because you need to know where not to put your units. And I need anti-air because it is a heavy battlecopter map. He's going to have a lot of battlecopter. I need at least one out there. And so here's one of my issues. As you can see, I moved this infantry first, which was really dumb. This guy should have been positioned on this river. This is stopping me from putting both my units down. I don't know what the heck I was smoking. Just and develop on the other side a little bit more. More battlecopters just because I have the money for it. I'm going to slightly withdraw back because I don't know if he has any units out here. I don't want to just leave them out here. I'd rather be defensive. Just withdraw my units back, setting up again. So at this point, of course, he has an anti-air and it's somewhere over here. Again, he's moving units here, which I don't think is great, because then if he has nothing here, he's got nothing there. Finally, I can start making battlecopters here. This was also a mistake on my end, because I only had 1 unit ready over here, because I'm not giving enough forethought to what I'm building on what base. That is an error I'm having. So finally I can drop off, and I'm fortunate enough where I can drop off a unit before moving it, because then, although yes, I can't move this unit where I want to, but then I can get this back for my next round of support. Finally, I'm going to send a tank up there. I'm going to send another anti-air because I like anti-air on this map. I want to make sure I control all air superiority. So this guy is sent up here like 90% just to get vision, and it's because I don't want to give a grit player a chance to set up infantry. So one thought of that is to just destroy his infantry, which kind of is useful. It's not great that I'm being super aggressive right now, but I really don't want these artillery to be able to come at me. And it's great that I have air support here, because these cannot really his artillery can't damage them. Sure, he could hit them with his tanks, I suppose, but that's 20% less on that. I actually will come out on top. So this one I just sent out to finish him, and then I see he has an artillery. I hit this. I probably should. Yeah, I should hit him with the full. I don't know. I could have been better. I just weakened his infantry. I need to kind of get rid of his infantry. Yeah, he starts taking ships at me. The good thing though is if we go open stats. This whole time, and I keep monitoring them, especially when I get antsy like this, is I'm looking at my deaths to kills, and so far I've gotten a better percentage of kills than him. And I'm just keeping, because I'm assuming I'm going to assume he has a perfect opening and he captures all his bases. And if he doesn't, oh well. You can actually see he's actually missing one base, this base. Whoopsie. Just call it. Basically just checking stats every so often to make sure. Because this, he instead of capturing this, he went down to attack my infantry. You don't want to just rush into battle necessarily, especially with grit. You want to bait them. You don't want to be too aggressive. You want... One of the issues with artillery is that they're a defensive unit, and they also... So that means that they're good for deterring as well as punishing. So in fog, they're good at punishing because I can't see them. They can't act as a deterrent to stop me from pushing into something. one thing I kind of don't like is that on this map, instead of just having like a solid blob of units like Grit typically likes to have, he likes to have a blob of units and just pushing down. He has them kind of spread out over here, which I think in the long run is not great. Continuing on, he's sending a lot of units over there to kind of pick off mine. He's even battlecopters. He starts throwing the tank deep into my area, and I don't like it when you start putting your tank on the other side of your unit. So I have a blob of units here. You put your unit on this side. It's not a good idea, because I normally would have like a reinforcement, something in the line of reinforcement ready to pounce on it. In this case, it's anti-air, which is super thrilling, but this battlecopter can also hit it. So you generally don't want to go around an enemy unit. It's just not a good idea. So down on the side, he moves units. I don't care too much. My main concern is not getting this, it's just hitting his units. Because right now I can only see one of these guys, and I know the rest of them over here are damaged, so even if he wipes me out, he's not going to be able to come get anything. See, the thing about him hitting both sides like this is I can keep my units quite balled up to some degree, versus him where if I just think about it, I can send a unit over to start picking him off, whichever unit I want. Keep sending over my anti-air. Because he decided he really wants to brawl over here, here's where I'm sending most of my units. Keep sending anti-air and tanks, because I'm going to need some tanks. If he has anti-air, although they're not as good, I still want to be able to hit them. I still want to be able to hit his tanks really well for an affordable cost. So again, over here, all I'm seeing is individual units, so I just send into, because I'm going to send these guys up, and next turn they're going to be able to try to capture some of this. Or not, based off of how I just position them. Soon they'll be able to. I go for a double copter, mostly because I need copters over here, and because I'm so far forward, I feel like there's going to be a copter here to destroy some of my copters. So I make another copter, because copter's good against Grit. Not a bad thing trade over there. He is pushing a lot, so I should back up a little bit. Not bad trying to hit my anti-air. It's why you keep producing anti-air. Sometimes you go for infantry and you get hit by a tank. That's why you normally want to save your anti-air for battlecopters. It's just I know he didn't have units in here right now, and I want to try to take up a defensive position as soon as I can, because then it's going to be hard to dislodge me. I don't remember what the heck I do. So you see this? I'm typically one of those people who just kind of freely sack anti-air into copters. Because as long as this comes back with alive, I think it's a fair trade. As long as it comes back alive and you can do something. I'm not super concerned about an anti-air being attacked by a battlecopter. The only thing that will screw me over is if he has some sort of artillery nearby that he's going to attack with. Yeah, tank would be the optimal thing to hit, but he's Grit, so he probably he's not building tanks consistently. One thing you should note is your opponent's bar over here. He's kind of full up, and the thought process I have with Grit, if I can see his artillery and wipe out all of his artillery, this power is useless, because his power scales with his indirects. If he doesn't have indirects, his power can't scale, and it's pretty mediocre and useless. So you're going to see me take a lot of kind of what I would refer to as risky plays, but that's because I think I can win with this strategy, even though it's not in optimal strategy. He keeps coming in this line, and the issue is that if you saw the reinforcement lines like here and here, so to get this unit over here, he's like 1 out of the reinforcement line. These guys are a little bit further out of the reinforcement lines. It's not a great place to kind of just hold down and push into. It also makes it harder for me to, like, just say take these units which I'm defending and push in. At the same time, it's not great for him either. I move mine over here because I think there's an artillery in this forest and I want to hit it. I don't. Secondary uses allows me to see his boat and what his situation is, as well as his positioning. So if he has 2 like me, I might be able to, if I see a lander, then I know he's doing a lander and I can position for that. I don't see one, which probably means he has just a black boat. And because I can't see it, means he hasn't reinforced with, not currently reinforced with infantry, which in this case is good for me if I push forward. Pull my anti-air back because at 5 HP is not going to be useful. I don't actually intend that this guy's going to get it right away. This guy over here, I know will get it. This guy, not necessarily. The only reason these are down here is because I saw a guy run here and I want to make sure it's cleared out, so I can't try to pull like a bangs or something. These forests are actually good if you throw a recon there. It's kind of a situational thing if you can even throw a recon there, and if there's fights over in the corner, it tends to be more late game if there are fights at all on this map. Moving forward. On this point, if he comes to attack this, because he can't, he would have to take his infantry to dislodge. Whatever he takes to kind of stop this cap, I have a plethora of units down here which I can actually make him pay for. He really needed some sort of, like, usually you want tanks around this line and whatnot. Not building tanks, he's building artillery, which are going to be hidden somewhere over here. Especially if he hasn't made a lander, it's going to be somewhere over here. So it's not defending this super well. And he pops it, and I think he only has like 2 artillery that can hit me. He has 3 artillery that can hit me. So 3 artillery is actually not super bad for against grid. Not perfect, but again, he's hitting on this side. He hit some tanks, which I agree. It's good, but he's still also pushing beyond this order to do that damage. Over here, he's just kind of wasting it on lower units. I mean, that was a good deal, but at the same time, I just have to take care of this. Yeah, this didn't do any damage, so that's a good trade. Yeah, I expected that. He has an APC, and on some maps, I'll grant it, APC is my preferred transport, and it comes down to what you can get out earlier. Oftentimes, you can get an APC out a little bit earlier than you can airport on most maps. On this map, I don't think it's worth that as much, especially because most of your infantry, you do have a unit over here already that can handle infantry. On this side, I think a battlecopter is better suited just because of all this wobbly gook, as well as it's not going to be slowed down as nearly as much from the forest tiles. And he withdraws his in, which is weird because usually you do a push on one side and you pull on one side, but withdrawing the infantry, I don't. Maybe he's trying to bait my units in here, but I'm going to focus on this right now because he hit me pretty decently out there. Of course, I pop it at the top of my turn just to make my life easy. Yeah, this is good. This is really great on one of Olaf's greatest things is this snow makes his reinforcements a lot harder, especially for Rit, which he has artillery that can't move it far, having to move and get in position before he attacks. That's good. And also I'm going to do some damage to him, which is not going to go into his power. Withdraw this to try to save it. This is the thing I tend to try to do with all my anti-air, because they are effective, but they are kind of an expensive unit, so you don't want them, and they're harder to get to where you need them, so you want to keep that survived as long as you can. And he took this guy out, but again, I have more infantry ready. I actually like him in some conditions. I like my opponent trying to target my infantry that's capping, because that means he's not hitting other targets, especially if he has to bring in a heavy hitter unit to do something. So this was helpful, because I see he finally does have a lander, yes. And I go over here. This also allows me to see that he has an artillery. Of course he does, because he's Rit. So he could try to stop this. He's going to forego this tank, though, if that's what he really wants to do. He's going to lose this soon enough. He does not have an option. And so far already, well, he clearly still doesn't have this city, but I already took one of his bases. So this is going, as long as I take equal engagements, he's slowly going to lose and going to help me just push further and further. And this is ideal and what you want for a map such as this. Nice thing about this is he can like take some pot shots at it, but he's not going to slow it down past three turns to take. These guys, there's no real movement he has for them, especially because he put his tank over here. Normally that would have been fine, because the tank can move over and without hindrance as much hindrance as the artillery will take, but especially it slows down his battle copters, which is the best thing on this map. He moves his guy back. He's kind of going to forgo this line right here, which is fine. That's what I want, because once I get these and just play defensively, I'll win. Although he's still trying to be aggressive, and anti-air, you don't necessarily want to be aggressive, especially when you know I have tanks. He knew I had tanks, and he's still sending in his anti-air, because this guy can just one-shot this. One of mine is just going to one-shot that. It's not a great strategy taking. Just take out that. Take out that. I should have hit that first, but okay, 2. Using my lower units to take out these, because I don't want to move these off base if I don't have to, because they're going to be harder to do something with. Now I see he has an artillery, and honestly, I don't remember what this is, but if he doesn't have recons, he doesn't have vision of it, so it's going to be an issue. In fact, I don't see it. You'll see it in a turn or two. He kind of does something that's and it's what he can do, but it's not great. And I'm doing this because at this point I see his artillery. I want to get rid of his artillery, because everything else is going to be equal trading. Once those are gone, we're actually going to be in my advantage, even though at this point I'm in his reinforcement zone. I'm in one reinforcement of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I'm in one reinforcement. But his thing that actually threatens me is the artillery, so I'm going to go for those. Yeah, I go for this because I don't think this is going to do much damage, especially now that I knocked it down to 1, as well as now that I put this here, he has to move this to get his tank in. Actually, no, he doesn't. He can just hit that if he wants. Again, my thought process is just, I'm getting cocky at this point. I'm starting to get, I'm getting bored with this game. I'm not really enjoying it so much. So I'm just trying to disrupt all of his artillery. Pretty much I already got this. I'm going to get this. I have 5,000 up on him. One more city, and that's a tank every turn. So yeah, he can have me. Again, I'm going to lose this guy. I think I can handle it because I have battlecopters in range that can deal something. Even his tank does not do much damage at this point. That's the weakness of Grit. He can't, once you break through his wall, he starts to crumble. It's just kind of hard to make walls on this map, though. I don't actually think I'm going to get this. I'm trying to get him to spend resources on here, and I don't think I actually... If I remember right, I don't get it. One thing I want to point... I'm going to move back just so you see it. On his turn, he attacks... Oh. Where is it? This guy attacks this unit. And he does that because this is the only unit he can see, and it's kind of a waste of artillery, to be honest. He'd rather hit this tank, but he doesn't have recon. He needs recon if you're going to play as Grit. Back to covering this. He can get it easily, but he's going to have to spend some resources to do it. And if he, let's say he moves resources over here, those are things that I can take and take hits at. At this point, I don't care. I don't care about those reinforcement lines necessarily. I just want to keep doing as much damage to him as I can. He still has not captured this, which if he just held off earlier that one turn, keep in mind, when he moved this, it was like turn 8 or something. It's been 10 turns since then. That's 8,000. That's an anti-air that he forgone because he decided, I'm going to attack instead of capturing this. Capture your cities, capture them early. It is worth it. Dude, watch this. 2 to 8. I'm trading 2 of his HP for 1 of mine. That's a good trade in this. I'm just trying to pick him off at this point. Because even if let's say he destroys me, right? He has no infantry. He's not going to be able to get down here and capture these bases in time. My thought is if he doesn't resign, because look at it, I'm like double him in everything. If he doesn't resign, I'm going to pull back and he destroys this stuff. I'm just going to pull back and hold off at this point because I have the income advantage. I don't need it. This is just kind of a threat. Finally takes out that guy. And then he pops Super Snipe even though he already had it. Because watch this. It took 2 hits. If he popped it and then hit me, it would have been a 1-shot. But he screwed that up. Again, he only has this artillery anymore to my knowledge, and whatever this guy was up here. He had 2 up here that he used, and this guy. He had 3 artillery, and his Super Snipe just really didn't do anything because he wasted it on infantry. To be honest, once he got this guy down to 2, focus on something else you can see. If you can take a hit on a land unit, on a vehicle, take that rather than this, because you're guaranteeing that if I want this, I have to join cap it, which is still going to take time because let's say I have to continue capping with this guy and then I have to join a unit on it. Whereas if you just take this out, what am I going to do? I'm going to put my healthiest unit on it, which may be a full HP infantry, and it might actually go faster for all you know. It's one of those things where it just try to do as much damage, stop this, but then do as much damage as you can to keep it. So really he's pulling backs on some fronts. He's pushing in his tanks to take out infantry. Not great. Again, he puts a battlecopter down here. I am ready to take him out. Pop, I get a whiff of this. I finally take that out. I use my tanks to hit him. I'm not concerned even if this tank goes on here and hits my tank, because his tanks are just that weak, and I'm just trying to reduce his unit count as much as I can. Look, he has an artillery, and he even has an anti-air here, which most of my units over here are air supports. Do I pull back? Oh yeah, I completely pull back. pull back and use Winter's Fury, so he can't do jack shit. Yeah, he can stop this. He can delay it 1 turn. But then I'm going to get it. This, I'm probably not going to get it, but at least now he either has to focus on these tanks or try to stop me now. He is in such a hard place that he can't come back. Finally, he resigns, day 19. Great. So my biggest issue with this map is that he didn't finish his captures. 2, he kept fighting me in the middle, which I personally don't understand the viability of that, especially because near the end I sent in with both forces over here to capture him. Well, to not capture, but to destroy him. I think the biggest thing is I don't agree with Grit being a good choice here. There's not. If there were more mountains or more choky parts, the parts where are of the main concern on this map are wide open. And the best things is you want more direct defensive units because you want to hide them in here, and they're at the very. You want to hide. You're hiding units at the end of your opponent's reinforcement line. Anyways, that was my match, and you know, it's what it is. I'm going to round 4 now, and wish me luck.